Oh no, we have a test today? I forgot to study. Has that ever happened to you? I think it has happened to every student across the whole world. Well, never fear. Today, I would like to help you learn the top 50 phrases that you will hear and use in a classroom in English. I'm sure that you'll pass this test with flying colors. We're not just going to be talking about items in the classroom, but also phrases that teachers often say to students and phrases that students often say to teachers. So whether you are a teacher or a student, this lesson is for you. Hi, I'm Vanessa from SpeakEnglishWithVanessa.com, and today I have created a free PDF worksheet for you, just like a good classroom teacher would do. And you can download this free worksheet with all of today's 50 important expressions for the classroom. You can download it, check out the phrases, the definitions, sample sentences, ways that you might use them, and at the bottom of the worksheet, you can answer Vanessa's challenge question so that you never forget what you've learned. You can click on the link in the description to download that free PDF worksheet today. All right. Are you ready to start studying for the test? Let's get started with our first category of classroom words, which are 10 items that you'll find in a classroom. The first one is, of course, a desk. Every student has their own desk in the classroom. Notice the grammar of this. I said every student, which is singular. And then I said has their own desk. I used that plural there. You can say every student has his or her own desk, but in spoken English, we just use that plural word there. Every student has their own desk. This is very common in spoken English, so you can use it too. A chair. I was so embarrassed when I fell out of my chair in the middle of class. A notebook. I forgot my notebook. Can I borrow some paper for class? Just a little note that in the US, a notebook is always paper. I know in some countries they call a laptop a notebook, but in the US, especially in the classroom, we call that just a notebook with paper. A pen or pencil. I like using a pen, but usually teachers like you to use a pencil for tests. A chalkboard, a blackboard, a whiteboard, or a smartboard. The students were so excited when we upgraded from a whiteboard to a smartboard. There were so many fun things that we could do with it. Just to let you know, a blackboard and a chalkboard are used interchangeably in the US. They're both things that are used with chalk, and you can use either word. A paperclip. I made sure to put a paperclip on my report because there were 10 pages. You can also use this as a verb. Make sure you paperclip your report together. A cubby or a locker. I forgot my notebook in my locker. Can I go get it? Usually the word cubby is used for elementary school children, so younger children, and a locker is used for older children. At least that's how it goes in the US. Tape. I tore my homework, so I had to use some tape to tape it back together. Notice how I used this both as a noun, I need some tape, and as a verb, to tape it back together. Highlighters. I use colorful highlighters to help me remember what I'm studying. This is also a word that you can use as a noun or a verb. I'm using a highlighter, or I like to highlight my notes. Scissors. I need to cut the paper. Can you pass me some scissors? Notice that the C is silent. Scissors. Scissors. Our next 10 classroom expressions are expressions that the teacher will say. Hi, my name's Miss Vanessa, and today we're going to be learning about math. Thankfully, I'm not a math teacher. If I walked into your classroom as your math teacher, you should probably be afraid. Math is not my strong suit. But here in the US, this is a common thing to say. Hi, I'm Miss Vanessa. It's becoming more and more popular to just use MS with a woman teacher because MISS means you're not married, Miss Vanessa, and Mrs. Vanessa means that you are married. But people are now kind of liking to not share if they're married or not. It makes sense. So they want to just use the form Miss. It sounds the same as MISS, but it's spelled MS, Miss Vanessa. And some schools will use a last name as well. They might say Miss Prothy or Miss Vanessa. I think it's becoming increasingly more popular to say Miss with a first name of the teacher, at least here in the US. We can't get started until everyone is in their own seat and quiet. Laying down the law. Open your book to page 10, or open your workbooks to page 10. We're going to split up into groups for this project, or we're going to split up into groups for this exercise. Sometimes the word exercise is used in the classroom, but it doesn't mean physical exercise. It's just a project or an activity. Keep your eyes on your own test, or no discussing answers. This is something a teacher might say to prevent cheating or to remind you, keep your eyes on your own test. Don't look at other people's test as you're taking it. And every student's favorite thing that a teacher says, today we're going to have a pop quiz, so I hope you did your homework. Ugh. Nothing strikes fear into a student's heart more than the phrase pop quiz. The word pop means surprise quiz. Today we're going to have a pop quiz. Oh, a terrible feeling. You will have 15 minutes to finish this quiz, no talking, and turn your paper face down when you're finished. This phrasal verb, face down, means simply turn your paper over. That way no one is tempted to look at your answers. Turn your paper face down when you're finished. Here in the US, teachers like students to come up with their own answers and not just memorize something from the book. At least that's the ideal situation. So when a teacher asks a question and a student just reads the answer from the book, the teacher might say, wait, tell me in your own words. In your own words means just create your own answer. Don't read it directly from the book. Tell me in your own words. And this is also a great idea for learning English as well. If someone asks you, what's your favorite movie? Well, you could read the back of the movie or read a description online, but it's better practice to just tell them in your own words, to create those sentences yourself and test your skills. All right, time's up. Pencils down. This is what a teacher will say at the end of a test or a quiz. Time's up. That means time is finished. And pencils down. You're all done with the test, I hope. And at the end of the day, the teacher will say, that's all for today. Don't forget to do your homework tonight. Bye. Our next category of important phrases for the classroom are 10 phrases that a student might say. Miss Vanessa, I don't have my pencil. Teachers hear this all the time. Or, Miss Vanessa, I don't have my book. Miss Vanessa, I don't have my homework. Well, how the teacher responds is always up to that teacher. For me, when I was a classroom teacher, I always kept a jar of pencils that any student could use. Ideally, they would return them at the end of the class period. That didn't always happen, but it's common for students to forget things during the day in the class. Miss Vanessa, my dog ate my homework. This is the most stereotypical excuse for forgetting your homework. Maybe your dog really did eat your homework, but this is something that you will absolutely hear in movies and TV shows. And if you're in the classroom, you might even hear a student so bold enough to say this excuse. Miss Vanessa, my dog ate my homework. Miss Vanessa, I don't understand. Or, Miss Vanessa, I don't get it. This phrase, I don't get it, is a little more informal and potentially rude if you say, Miss Vanessa, I don't get it, with this kind of attitude like, I don't really care. Oh, I'm annoyed. But if you say this in a polite way, Miss Vanessa, I don't get it. Can you explain it again? That's perfectly fine. You can tell the difference in my attitude. I need to cram for this test if I'm gonna get a good grade. The verb to cram is used a lot by students, and it means to study a lot, usually the night before, maybe a day in advance, possibly, but it means you need to push all of that information into your brain. You need to cram the information into your brain. You can also use this verb in a physical way. If you're packing for a big trip and you have too many clothes to fit in your suitcase, you might say, I need to cram all of my clothes into this small suitcase. That's the physical way we can use this verb. Unfortunately, I said this next one in college a lot. I haven't studied for the test tomorrow, so I'm gonna pull an all-nighter. Can you guess what this means? To pull an all-nighter means to stay up all night studying. It's really never a good idea, but it happens. You might ask your classmates, hey, can I borrow your notes? I was sick yesterday. And if your classmate is nice, they might let you borrow their notes. Psst, you know Sam? He's a real teacher's pet. Miss Vanessa is always picking him to write on the whiteboard. This phrase, a teacher's pet, seems like a nice thing. It's the teacher's favorite student. But in reality, it's usually a term that other students use to make fun of someone. You're such a teacher's pet. Usually it's not a good thing, but in reality, what's so wrong with being one that a teacher likes? Well, students just don't like it. Miss Vanessa, are there extra credit points? Miss Vanessa, are there bonus points? If you're not doing so well in a class, you might ask that question. Miss Vanessa, I'm totally lost. If you are so confused, you have no idea what's going on, it's a great phrase to use. And our final phrase that students say in the classroom is one that unfortunately I used with many of my poor teachers. Teacher, when are we going to use this? If you've ever sat in a math trigonometry class, just cramming information into your brain and feeling so overwhelmed and frustrated because you just didn't get it, that was me. You might ask your teacher this, excuse me, when am I going to ever use this? And the idea is, when am I going to use this after school, in the real world, in my job? A lot of people don't use trigonometry in their job. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. So students often feel frustrated if they can't see a link between what they're learning in the classroom and what they're going to be using in the real world. So that's something that I try to do here on my YouTube channel. A lot of you learned English phrases in the classroom that just weren't relevant, that were just not really used in real life. So here on my YouTube channel, I'm trying to teach you what people really use in the real world, because that is what you're going to use when you speak with people at your job, when you travel, or just friends that you make around your city. The next 10 classroom expressions are questions that a teacher might ask, and then we'll talk about some questions that a student might ask. A teacher might ask, can anyone tell me? Or who can tell me? And she's asking the classroom to give her some feedback and answer the question to see if they have that knowledge. Can anyone tell me what is the best way to learn English? Any questions? This is a great question by a teacher because it's important that they give students the time to ask questions as well. When students are all taking turns doing something, the teacher might forget who has had a turn and who hasn't had a turn. So the teacher will ask this question, who hasn't gone yet? Who hasn't gone yet? I know we're using the word go here, who hasn't gone, we're using that in the past, but really the question is, who hasn't had a turn yet? But the most common way to say it is this, who hasn't gone yet? The next question, a teacher or a student might ask this, whose turn is it? If you forget whose turn it is, you could ask this, whose turn is it? Let's go on to some questions that students specifically ask. Miss Vanessa, what page are we on? Sometimes this makes a teacher roll their eyes. Weren't you paying attention? But it's a common question. Miss Vanessa, can you repeat the question? Miss Vanessa, when is the test? And possibly the most common question of all time, Miss Vanessa, will this be on the test? Nothing makes a teacher more angry because of course the teacher wants the students to enjoy learning all the information and to readily soak it in. But really what the students want to know is, do I need to learn this? Do I need to memorize this? Or is this just something extra? Will this be on the test? When there's a group project, one student might ask another student this question, do you want to work together? Do you want to work together? As we know, students are always forgetting something, so it's best to ask your classmates before you ask your teacher. You might ask your classmates, can I borrow a pencil? Can I borrow a book? Can I borrow some paper, please? And our final 10 phrases that are used in the classroom are phrases that are used for feedback. So a teacher will say this to students to give them some feedback, positive or negative feedback, or to give some encouragement to students. On a math test, you might see the teacher write or say this, show your work. What does this mean? This means that you can't just write the answer. You need to show how you got to that answer. You need to write out all of the processes that you used to get to that answer. Show your work. This also helps the teacher know that you're not cheating. You're not just looking at Vanessa's paper. Don't look at my paper. It probably has the wrong math answer. But when you show your work, it tells the teacher that you know how to do that problem. A similar phrase that you might see on a test or you might hear the teacher say is explain your answer. This works for math, but this also works for other subjects as well. If you get something wrong and the teacher doesn't want to just say, no, that's wrong, the teacher will probably say, almost, try again. This is a really polite thing to say. I often say this to my kids actually because, sometimes they're close or it's not exactly correct, but it's not a serious thing. So I'm not going to say, no, that's wrong. Instead, you can just say, almost, try again. A similar expression is you're on the right track. A teacher will say this to a student who isn't exactly giving the perfect answer, but it's close to the correct answer, and they want to encourage the student to keep exploring that idea further. You're on the right track, keep going. A kind teacher might also say, keep practicing, you almost got it. You almost got it. If you take out the word almost, it means you have the correct answer. You got it. But oftentimes students don't have the correct answer the first time, so a teacher might say this, keep practicing, keep trying, you almost got it. You're so close. So to take that expression and use it in the positive way, a teacher might say, you got it, keep going, you got it. You are doing great, you have the correct answer, keep working. If the teacher wants to give a little hint or some feedback about a future test to students, the teacher might say, here are some things that you'll want to focus on before the next test. They might even say wink, wink, or nudge, nudge, or just to let you know, here are some things that you might want to focus on before the next test. They're not saying these things will be on the test. They're kind of using a more indirect expression. These are the things that you might want to focus on. The next question could be used by students or teachers. It's what about? Here we're using it to suggest something. So a student might use this in response to a teacher. Let's say that teacher, Miss Vanessa, asked the class, do you know why there are waves in the ocean? This was actually a question that my kids were talking about in the car a couple days ago. It's very familiar to me right now. The teacher asked, why are there waves in the ocean? Well, the students might not be extremely certain of their answers, so they could use this great question. What about wind? What about the moon? What about here they're suggesting an answer, even though they don't know the exact correct answer, they don't feel certain of it, they can use this question. And a teacher can also use this question by giving suggestions to students. So let's say students are answering the question, why are there waves in the ocean? And they throw out some ideas, and the teacher wants to also throw out some ideas to see what the students think about it. They might say, what about whales? What about sharks? Maybe they're making the waves due to their big size. I'm not sure. But here, this is the teacher giving suggestions or the students giving suggestions. Do you know what the correct answer is? Why are there waves? Well, the answer is wind. Very cool. You should look it up. There's some very interesting videos about why there are waves. The next phrase a teacher might say to give encouragement to a student is, I can tell you've been working hard on this. I can tell you've been working hard on this. This doesn't mean it's perfect or this is the best in the entire class. It just means for you, I know that you put a lot of effort into this, and that's what I want. I want you to put a lot of effort into it because that's the only way you're going to improve. I can tell you put a lot of hard work into this, or I can tell you've been working hard on this. And our final phrase that you will hear in the classroom is one that we all want to hear. You passed with flying colors. This is a beautiful idiom that means you got a 100%. You had perfect answers for every single one. You passed with flying colors. Congratulations. And guess what? You passed this lesson with flying colors. Hooray! I hope that this lesson helps you to go into the classroom with confidence. You can speak with your teacher Or if you are a teacher, you can speak with your students. Or if you're a parent, you can speak with your student, your child, and the teacher with confidence. Go into the real world and conquer it. Don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet with all 50 of these important classroom expressions, definitions, sample sentences, and ways that you can use them in real life. You can click on the link in the description to download that free PDF worksheet today. Well, thank you so much for learning English with me, and I'll see you again next Friday for a new lesson here on my YouTube channel. Bye! But wait, do you want more? I recommend watching this video next, where you will learn to break all the rules that you learned in the classroom. Well, maybe not all of them, but some important rules that you can break so that you can speak real natural English. I'll see you there.